Hey everyone, welcome to Tips and Tricks in Real Estate. I'm Angela Fazio. That's my really good looking co-host, Sam Staskall. And our guest today is Virginia Prado. She's from Casa Grande, Arizona, and she is going to give us tips about new construction, which I'm really excited to hear about. So Virginia, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. And let's get started. Give us some tips.
Yes, thank you, first of all, for inviting me. This is so exciting. So tips for new construction. I mean, if you're anywhere, you're seeing the new construction boom just like around every corner. So getting into it is pretty exciting, especially for a lot of our clients. But there's a few things that I always like to get out of the way first and address whenever we're going to be going that route. So my first tip is going to be to check if the company, the new build company, works with outside agents. So that has been a big deal here very recently. Before, you might not have thought about that, but recently we're seeing that sometimes they're not working with outside agents. So that could put you at a disadvantage if you're representing somebody else. Too much coffee this morning.
Well, one of the things that that you have to do with new builds is you got to preview them so you can know that stuff before you show up with your client and you're like, crap, I'm not getting paid.
So I have a question about this before we go further, because I talked to somebody from Arizona here recently who mentioned a lottery system when it comes to buildable lots. Can you touch on that at all? Because I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah, so because of the housing shortage, we're seeing that builders are kind of getting like, they're able to be a little bit more selective with who gets to purchase a home there. So instead of it being always first come, first serve, now they're doing a lottery. So people will essentially put their names in a hat to be selected. Other times they're picking their who goes under contract based off of, how many incentives and how many upgrades you purchase. So someone who's looking to keep their budget, pretty conservative, they might not have a really fighting shot with a builder who's going that route and who's just picking, the most upgrades.
Okay.
Yeah. That's really interesting. The other thing that can happen with new builds is they won't, some new builds, okay, this is for clients out there and real estate agents who might not know, some new builds, they do not care what kind of relationship you have with your clients. They don't care if you have a buyer broker signed or a buyer contract signed with them.
Right.
Or anything signed. If you don't accompany them the first time they ever go to the builder, you're out of luck.
Yeah,
and you lose out.
Even if you builders that I've seen require now some of the agents to re-register their clients in order to maintain that relationship. So build times are taking 8 to 12 months now. Every 3 to 5 months, some of these builders are saying it's required that you re-register them in order to stay their agent, which is just like crazy.
What?
Like we have,
yeah, it's true though. The other thing that clients misunderstand a lot is that, why would I need a real estate agent on a new build? Because there's agents there at the builder.
Yeah.
They can help me. I'm like, what? They work for the builder. They may act real nice, but they work for the builder. That's who they are loyal to.
Right.
You need somebody who can be loyal to your process and things like that. There's so many myths. You're probably going to hit them, but if not, we're going to hit them. We just sidetracked you. Okay, Virginia, what's another tip?
Yeah. Our next tip is investors. So with so many new communities going up, it's really easy to just, sell off 5 lots, 10 lots at a time to investors. And some of these, new construction, communities are really taking advantage of that. But when you think about it, your client that you represent, hi.
This is Max.
You totally sidetracked me there.
I'm sorry. I'm the worst.
Your client that you're representing, if that's going to be their primary home, their primary residence, you'll want to have that conversation with them. Do you want to live in a community that is going to have a very high population of renters, because so many investors are being let through the floodgates?
That's a really good point. Here in South Chandler, which is in Arizona, there are several neighborhoods back in like 2004 and 5 that opened the floodgates to investors. And there are distinct neighborhoods that suffered because of that, because they didn't put any upgrades. They just kind of left everything vanilla, and then put a bunch of renters in there. So that's a great question to ask. What is the builder policy on investor buyers?
Yeah, so some builders will have like a limit of how many investors that they allow, and then some will just flat out tell you, we're not allowing investors, which I love to hear. I love to hear that right now, because it really helps our clients, with the community that they pick.
Yep, I agree.
My third tip was going to be the wait list. So we kind of touched on that already with the lottery, because that's a big deal. A lot of our clients, they might be struggling, winning contracts or winning offers out in a regular resale. So they look to new construction thinking that it's going to just be easy peasy, and it's not exactly. So we're seeing lotteries that are just super random. We're also seeing like upgrade incentives. And then sometimes you're going to find a community that will let you do first come, first serve. I find that, a little tip or a little hack that I like to use when I find those types of communities is to just build a rapport with that agent that you went to go visit with. Call them, bi-weekly basis. Just talk about the pricing, whatever you can to stay top of mind. Because if they have a list of 100 people and your client is, 79, for the most part, a lot of those people are going to drop off. They're either going to get priced out or they're going to find something else. So if you can keep your client top of mind, when something comes available, they're like, oh, I'm going to call Virginia. She calls me every week. I'm going to just call her first. Get her out of my hair.
That's a really good point. You can be a very nice and kind squeaky wheel.
Yes. My next tip is going to be Earnest Money. So this is my fourth tip. Earnest Money looks a little bit different when we're talking new construction. It can be pretty low and it can be pretty high. So it's really kind of all over the place. At the end of the day, the builder will determine what they feel is reasonable earnest money. Usually your client is going to have to pay that the day that they sign. So with a traditional resale, for the most part, you'll see earnest money can be paid, maybe a couple days later. But more often than not, the day that they're signing, they're going to need to have those funds available to satisfy the earnest money. Now, something cool that I recently found out is that some builders are allowing your clients to do installments for earnest money, which when I found that, I was like, that's pretty cool. So you just want to ask those questions. What does it look like to pay earnest money, and ask them if there's any options that might help clients to get those satisfied, especially if it's a bit bigger,
So when you say it's a bit bigger, like how much is it?
So personally, I've never seen one this big, but I do have, some colleagues that I've worked with that say that they've seen as high as like $30,000 or something like that. But I've seen as low as 500. So it really is a big window. And they're making the rules. So we just got to know what they are.
That's a really good point. And I think that's sometimes agents will get frustrated because the new builds make the rules, but it's their rules. So the funny thing is in resale, we can kind of predict about how the process will probably go. In new construction, that's not true at all. You have to be ready to read every one of those contracts. As dull as that is, you need to read them because they are different from each other, and no new build has to be, the same as another new build. So if you don't do your job, that's why clients really need a good real estate agent for new builds. I think in some ways, even more than resale. And we're gonna get into that right after your last tip. But if you're a client listening out there, you need an excellent real estate agent, especially on a new build. But I'm going to keep you in suspense until our last tip.
Yeah, and my last tip is going to be, a fun one everyone wants to hear about is incentives. A lot of times when you go with new construction, even though it might not be just like that easy foot in the door, there might be a little bit of hoops to jump through. A lot of times our new construction communities are able to offer incentives, and those might look different for different communities. More often than not, you're going to see that those incentives are tied to using their preferred lender, or at least applying with their preferred lender. So they may give you some money off of closing costs. They may actually, contribute towards upgrades that you're looking for. But recently, I just actually posted about this. One of my clients got all of their closing costs covered as an incentive for being a veteran. So
wow, I'm surprised. That's awesome.
yeah, crazy, right? So they're thrilled. But you just really want to ask those questions, like, what are the incentives? And don't feel like you're being, greedy or anything. They're there for a reason. They're there to be used. And if you don't ask for them, you don't use them, then someone else will.
I agree. You know what, Virginia, good for you for being professional and getting knowledgeable in the area of new construction. So many agents say this to me. Oh, my client just wrote on a new build. I don't have to do anything. And my eyes go, oh crap. I mean, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like when we had clients with new builds, we would go through inspections, not just one inspection like on resale or like a couple of inspections on resale. It would be like at foundation, at framework, at electrical, at drywall. I mean, if you're a professional real estate agent or a client, let's talk to you clients. If you're a client out there, there's so much we can help you with on your way to your new build. Yeah. Every single time I've ever had an inspection with a client on a new build, we found like stuff that they need to fix during, like once they close those walls. How do you know if the framing was right? How do you know the electrical is right? How do you know they ducted everything correctly? Yeah. If you get a good real estate agent and you pay for that inspection and it's worth it, you're going to be so happy because you're going to find all of these things that you never would have known about until later when someone's trying to buy your house and now you have to deal with it. Am I right?
Right. No, you know what? You bring up a good point because I have a client who, we went through the process and they opted to get the pre-drywall inspection in addition to the final inspection. And in the pre-drywall, they found that all of the like PVC piping, for the most part, it was touching or rubbing up against like the metal gussets. And they're like, over time, those pipes are going to move and move and move, and you're going to find water and you're not going to know why or where it's coming from. So during that process, we said, nope, you need to move those. And, we went in after the fact and checked every single connection and okay, those were moved. So my clients had that peace of mind knowing that they didn't have to at least worry about that.
Right. You're amazing, Virginia. Somebody needs to hire you down in Casa Grande right now. Pick up the phone and find Virginia Prado. So we had Samantha Cack, who is local agent here, ask about what about custom new builds? Any tips? It's just a lot more detail because generally speaking, a custom home client is in it for the details. So you need to set your mind, especially if you're a personality type like me. I'm a D on the disc. I have like 0 C. I need to set my mind that if I'm going to be helping someone through a custom new build, I need to slow down and care a lot about the details. Find my inspector partners that thrive on details and work together with that inspector to ensure that we can speak the language of details. Because why does somebody buy a custom home? Because they want details, right? Yep. I mean, I don't think that that's untrue for people who get a new home either. There are so many details in a new home build. It's from picking out cabinets and flooring. And so you have to set your mind to care about the details. And you should be a part of the process. You should not tell them what to do, but you should be a voice of reason sometimes, right? A voice of reason sometimes during that process. It is a specialty. And Virginia's got it nailed down. What kind of advice would you give to agents, or even clients should hear this so they can see if they have a good agent, to go through that new home process? You've said a few, but do you have any others?
Like advice for picking an agent or for picking a new build, or just in a general sense? How
to get through that process. Like, what are some things you don't want to miss to get through that process? Clients need to hear it because they want the realtors to take care of it and think of it. And realtors need to hear it so they can get better.
So one thing I will say, it's, to me, it's a bit more broad. When you go into, the mindset of you're going to purchase a home, there's all these emotions, it's happy, it's scary, it's exciting. And for the most part with a resale home, that all will be condensed into about like a 30 to 45 day process. I always try to set my clients' expectations up. Like, you're going to be experiencing all of these feelings for a much prolonged period of time. And it's going to feel crazy. So just prepare yourself that things are not going to happen. I have clients who pass by and they say, the framing's been done for 3 weeks. Why aren't they putting, because that is the process. We have to respect the process, and you're going to feel a little crazy at times. So just, that would be my biggest thing, to just prepare for that whole ride, because it's a lot different.
Wow, that's really good advice. That's really good advice. Hi, Jody Lee. I know you're listening right now. That's a really good point. And delays.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look at this rain. Last couple of weeks when we had that big storm out here, I saw so many people posting about the drywall or the framing that was tipped over for some of their new builds. I'm like, wow, what kind of setback are you looking at there? You know, like, that's a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the process, though. Do you have any other questions, Sam, for Virginia?
I've never done a new build, to be honest. I live in a small town. They just don't do it. Maybe they do, and I just don't know about it. These are good tips.
I guess my last piece of advice, if you're working in a community, and clients don't do this because you need to go with a realtor to do this. But if you're a real estate agent in your community and there's a bunch of new builds, real estate agents, you need to constantly preview the new builds so that you know the inventory. You don't want to go to new builds without a real estate agent. You're missing out on an opportunity to have an advocate in your corner to ensure that your process goes better than that new build representative would ever care to help you through. So Virginia, thank you so much. You were amazing with your tips. And I know that so many people are like, I've learned something today from that girl.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. This was exciting. And yeah, you know, if there's anything I could do, just sharing the information. If anybody has questions, like, I'm always open to questions. And if I don't know it, then let's figure it out.
Good idea.
That's right. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
See you guys. Thanks for listening.